Hey, Troop, and welcome back. Public Servants, Private Fortunes is a series with one simple question. Where does the money go when it leaves the taxpayer hands? Today, we're going deeper into one of the biggest pipelines in the entire federal system, the Pentagon contract machine. Because when people hear defense spending, most of them picture our troops, training, readiness, the real national security aspects. But a massive portion of that budget doesn't stay in our military. It turns into contracts issued to private corporations, year after year, decade after decade. This matters because when the same companies keep winning these contracts and the money stays concentrated, you don't just get a bottomless pit for our money, you get a system that wants to protect itself as well. It lobbies, it funds narratives, it keeps the urgency high, and it makes it harder for the public to ever see a real peace dividend when the wars come to an end. So in this episode, we're going to lay out the numbers. Let's get into it. Supposedly we left Afghanistan, and in spectacular fashion at that. Most people expected that to mean that we'd finally see the tax dollar black hole cool off just a little bit, but of course that did not happen. From 2020 to 2024, private companies received about $2.4 trillion in Pentagon contract awards. Over that same period, that worked out to roughly 54% of the Pentagon's discretionary spending. So basically, we pulled the boots on the ground aspect, but still more than half of the money went out the door as contracts. Now let's take a look at where that money went. Over those 5 years, only 5 companies pulled in about $771 billion in Pentagon contract awards. Lockheed Martin at $313 billion. RTX Raytheon at $145 billion, Boeing at $115 billion, General Dynamics at $116 billion, and Northrop Grumman at $81 billion. To put those numbers into perspective, during those same years, the total U.S. budget for diplomacy, development, and humanitarian aid, not military aid, was about $356 billion, all combined. So just 5 defense contractors took in more than double what the U.S. spent on non-military foreign assistance over the same time period. That should make anyone stop and think, but it doesn't. This trend is not slowing down. This isn't a one-time spike, if you've been paying any attention at all. Contracting has been taking a bigger share of the Pentagon budget for decades now. If we look back over the years, in the 1990s, it was about 41%. Then about 52% in the 2000s, and now here we are sitting around 54% of the Pentagon's budget. So the pattern is pretty consistent in the budgets that the public can see. More and more of the Pentagon's money, your tax dollars, gets routed through private contracts over time. Ending the war in Afghanistan didn't shrink the machine, it just made it hungrier. A lot of people assumed that the Afghanistan withdrawal would lead to a peace dividend. That's the talking point that we've kept hearing for years. Instead, the justifications just started changing. China became the main long-term threat in official messaging, and global demand started surging with Ukraine and the Middle East. Now we see that total U.S. military spending in 2025 is being pushed beyond $1 trillion. Right now it's around $1.6 trillion after legislation added about $156 billion to the overall military budget. Conflict also drives outside demand. The Pentagon is not the only revenue source. Conflict increases demand for weapons abroad too. Israel and Ukraine have been churning that pipeline consistently now for the last few years. 2022 and 2023 saw over $82 billion go to military and other aid to these countries. On top of that, over $170 billion has gone to foreign-funded arms sales to European allies from 2023 to 2024. Different buckets, but the same results. The demand rises and the same companies are in the positions to fill it. And now that the world is advancing, it's not just jets and missiles. The contractor world is expanding into big tech. Tech players are now advancing their names in the defense industry as well. AI, data systems, drones, autonomy, and space, with names like Palantir, Anduril, SpaceX, they're all showing up alongside other major tech companies landing large cloud contracts. So even as the old defense giants stay dominant, the next wave of contractors is being built up around them as we speak. This is a beast that's become uncontrollable, and there's a reason for this. It's all on the influence side. The arms industry employed about 950 lobbyists as of 2024. Millions are dumped into contractor funding for major think tanks and the always revolving door between government roles and defense industry jobs. You can support the military and still want accountability. When more than half of the Pentagon's discretionary budget becomes private contracts and a handful of companies consistently dominate those awards, the public has a right to start asking questions. Are we buying real security for our country, or are we just building a system that keeps rewarding war no matter what? Because if the US can move $2.4 trillion through Pentagon contracts in just 5 years, the argument that we can't afford other priorities starts to sound less like a money problem and more like a choices problem. So when do we decide to fix this? The core numbers and findings in this piece are drawn from the Quincy Institute Cost of War Report, Profits of War, Top Beneficiaries of Pentagon Spending 2020 to 2024 by William D. Hartung and Julia Gledhill-Simler, and from OpenSecrets.org. For more public servants, private fortunes, and other veteran-related content, give us a follow at Charlie Victor Vet on YouTube and TikTok. We're all in this fight together, and Charlie Victor has your six.